Yo, what's up? Hello Ego here, and today I wanted to show you how I turn Ableton's compressors from a stereo linked compressor into a stereo unlinked compressor, which can help to preserve your stereo image. I think a lot of people don't know that Ableton's compressors are all actually mono sidechain trigger. Which it can impact your stereo image. I won't say negatively or positively, but it will have an impact on your stereo image. So sometimes if I'm working with a sample or a sound that has a lot of wide stereo content to it, I might use an unlinked compressor to preserve that stereo content. And I'll dive into that in a moment here. Before I start, I just want to say if you find this tutorial useful and you like it, I've got a lot of other information over on my Patreon. A lot more long form tutorial videos where I dive much deeper into a lot of these concepts I go into. Also, I have sample packs that I make with my analog gear and modular synths. I also offer track review, really in-depth track review. I will shred your track. All right, I won't just be like, oh, it's good. No, I'll shred it. Also offer custom sample packs. If that's something you want, I will make a sample pack that is uniquely for you and only you. And, of course, private lessons. So let's dive back into this over here. First of all, what do I mean when I say a mono-triggered sidechain? Well, what that means is, well, first of all, let's just talk real quick about how compressors work in case that's unfamiliar to you. All right, I'll make a new track here, and I'm going to add Ableton's compressor onto it. Right there. So how this works, let's just get a drum loop here because this will be a little easier. Or yeah, sure, or maybe we'll get something that I made that's a little bit more interesting. All right, so I found this sample here. This is one of the samples that actually comes out of one of the Patreon packs that is, which one? Not released yet. This one's going to be coming out in November or whenever I decide to put it out. So anyway, you get a little preview of what you might get if you sign up for the Patreon. Kind of a cool funky bass line, all right? So I'm just going to use this to demo how a compressor works very quickly, and then we'll get on to the main subject at hand. If you want, if you know how a compressor works, you can skip this. I'll put a little time mark in the bottom there. So let's go here. Timestamp, they're called. If I look at this compressor, what this is telling me is saying this is my threshold. So if the audio input passes the threshold, compression is going to be applied. All right. In the amount determined by the ratio. All right. This is the speed, how fast the compression will be applied. This is the speed, how fast the compression will be let up on once the audio passes beneath the threshold again. So you can see if we just take this little section right in here. Let's turn the attack and the release way down so it's very quick. See this little yellow bit right here where it says GR? That stands for gain reduction. All right. It's showing you that this audio is so loud that it's passing the threshold that I've determined here. And this, the little in-between sections where it's quiet, that's where the volume is falling underneath the threshold and the compression is releasing and letting up and reducing the amount of gain reduction during that time, okay? That's all I'm going to say about compressors. I have tutorials where I go way deep into them and I think explain them in a way that makes it very easy to understand. But that's not what we're here to talk about. I just want you to understand that if audio passes this threshold, then compression will be applied. Now, why is that important to a stereo unlinked compressor? Well, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a very weird audio waveform just to demonstrate this, okay? I'm going to get a clave, and you can do this with your own self, your own situation, your own whatever. Operator. White noise. Okay, I'm just going to make a bit of white noise here. But I'm going to turn it down quite a bit. And I'm going to make sure that my clave is nice and loud. And I'm going to resample this. But I'm going to pan the white noise off to the right and the clave off to the left. There. So I've created a very strange file here, all right, where on the left channel we have a clave, on the right we have some white noise. I can get rid of these. I don't need them anymore. I'll just turn them off for the time being. Now, why would I want to make this waveform? This is because what I'm trying to prove here is that regardless of whether the left or the right channel triggers your sidechain gain reduction, whether the left or the right channel passes the threshold and starts to reduce volume. If the right channel, or in this case, the left channel is what's going to trigger it. So if the left channel triggers the sidechain, it's going to just reduce the volume of the full stereo image. So both the left and the right side. All right. So let's go ahead and add a compressor to this. And I'm going to set my ratio up really high. I'm going to turn the makeup gain off. I'm going to turn the knee off. No attack time, and the release time is fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to situate this threshold where I'm seeing the clave peak it up, but the white noise is not. So the white noise will be under the threshold, and the clave will be above the threshold. There we go. So we can see the left channel here is the clave, the right channel is the white noise. The white noise is not being affected by the compressor, but the clave is. However, if I were to resample this channel and take a look at what the result from the compression is, check that out. Despite the fact that we were not using the compressor to compress the, anything but the clave, it still pushes down the volume on the right channel, the white noise that's not supposedly being affected by the compressor. All right. Now, I think it's important just to know that. I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm just saying it's important to know that. And if you know that, then you can make choices in the future, right? So if I have very wide, very, very percussive things, I might want to compress each of them independently so that when the left channel compresses, it does not also squish down the right channel. That can have a weird, like, narrowing effect on your stereo image. It can also affect sounds in the right or the left side, the opposite side that's being compressed, in a way that you don't like, okay? So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you the way around this. So what you can do is I'm just going to group this compressor, the same compressor we were using. I'm going to group it, and I'm going to quickly set up an instrument that I use. Okay, I'm going to map this to macro 1, map this to macro 2, map this to macro 3, map the dry wet, and map the threshold. Let's just keep it to like all the main, all the main parameters. I can map everything else if I wanted to. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this compressor. I'm going to call this one left. I'm going to call this one right. And then I'm going to get a utility, and I'm going to put my utility before the compressor. It's important you put it before the compressor. And I'm going to say this side, only take audio from the right channel, and this side, only take audio from the left channel. And then I'm going to pan this one left, pan this one right. All right. And what we've got now are two independent compressors. This one is affecting only the left side. This one is affecting only the right side. So now if I were to run this again and show you the resampled result, ta-da! We get the compression on the left channel, but we do not have any compression on the right channel. So a fully stereo unlinked compressor in Ableton using only Ableton effects. There are a lot of other compressors, like third-party compressors. For instance, Fab Filter, all right? Pro C2. I can never get theirs to pop up. Pro C2, all right? So here's a compressor, and if you take a look on a sidechain, right? If you gotta click this little sidechain section here, you can see there's a stereo link, right? You can unlink it a little bit and pull it down. And this is nice because I usually don't like to unlink them fully for like a master bus because I kind of want everything to gel together a little bit. But in this situation, basically what I've done is created a fully stereo unlinked. It's like doing this, and that way you have two independent compressors, one for the left, one for the right side. Okay. And I've done this with a bunch of different, devices. I've got this color limiter, which I really like to use. You can see I made a stereo version of my color limiter, right? Where I've just done what I showed you how to do here. I think the other important thing that I didn't mention is that you should probably lower this by -3 and lower this by -3 as well, because these are two identical signals, right? And when you were to add those back together again, you'd get a 6 decibel gain boost. So you probably would just want to take that down by -6 decibels total. And that way, whatever comes into it comes out the same volume. In short, I think that's everything that I wanted to say about this. That should get you started and should get you thinking a little bit about your stereo image. hopefully you find this useful. Like I said, if you do find this useful, there's lots of other stuff like this on my Patreon. Really hope to see you there. And if you've got any questions, throw them in the comments. Thanks.